Hello, it's good to be here this morning. I'm going to be talking about ADA and the relationship with interpreters. ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. You came and you asked me to come and explain how interpreters and ADA are related. I'm going to explain a little bit about ADA and how it works. There are 5 sections of the ADA. I'm going to talk mainly about the first 3. The first, Title I, it has to do with employment with private companies. Federal government, that's a different law, but ADA with private companies, they have to have, they used to have 150 employees, but now they have to have 15. But above 15, they don't. Wait a minute, I made a mistake. Above 15 and above, they have to follow the ADA regulations. The federal government is more strict about that. This the second section talks about public accommodations. And they have different programs and different benefits in that section. And then the third, public transportation and the accommodations for the people coming in. Any private place or restaurant or they have different rules that they have to follow. And then Section 4 talks about telecommunications. You don't believe me? I didn't think so. Well, it does happen. It continues. Equal access, 352 days a year, has to be equal. The access has to be equal and the same for everybody. And then the 5th is miscellaneous, just different things put into that group. That's the 5th title. Effective communication. What does that do? All of that fits into Title V. We're going to concentrate more on the first 3 instead of the last 2. I am a deaf person and I am sick of the different problems we have with employers. An interpreter comes in and they don't know the vocabulary and they're going to interpret to me, and sometimes what I am intending, the interpreter has no clue and they interpret it differently. So I ask, what does effective communication mean, to make sure that she understands and that I understand her and she understands me. And during my lecture, effective communication doesn't mean the same as successful communication. It's different. And I want that interpreter to know that vocabulary. And if she doesn't have a concept, then she makes me look like I don't have a clue of what I'm talking about. And it's the interpreter's responsibility and their skill to know ADA and the vocabulary that goes with that. And then if they do, then we're a good match. And that's how those are related with the ADA and interpreters. Okay, first we're going to talk about employment. Whose responsibility is it for it to make employment equal? Well, there are rules, and there's an department. It's the EEOC. So if you have a complaint, you have to contact them. Who's going to explain the the skill of the interpreter? Who decides that and what it means? The EEOC is responsible for the certificates of the interpreter. The interpreter shows their certificate. Now, what is the reasonable accommodation? They try to match those accommodations with the disability of that person. Another example of reasonable accommodation is maybe a person with a wheelchair. Maybe the table needs to be lowered so the wheelchair can go under it comfortably. Or if someone is standing, the table needs to be raised. That's a reasonable accommodation. It is the building structure's responsibility to provide reasonable accommodations for the person with the wheelchair. Okay, who decides if you need an interpreter or something written out? Well, it's the boss's responsibility to get an interpreter if needed. You may need one for staff meetings, for training, for evaluations. There's a variety of different things that a person needs or individual needs. Maybe one individual needs an interpreter and the other one doesn't need one. There's just a variety of different situations. Now, what if the boss is being defensive and says, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't get an interpreter. Maybe he's saying we don't have enough money to hire someone, but it is still the business's responsibility and the boss's responsibility to get an interpreter. If not, there could be a chance that business is shut down. There are regulations that tell whose responsibility it is. Again, with public accommodations. Again, we're talking about, there's some confusion, the difference between the federal buildings and private companies. Okay, I'm going to explain about the interpreters, and they have to have first you want to discuss the interpreter's certificate, and which is a which is a better use of the certificate that they have. So depending on the certificate of the interpreter, so we need to, it's a little bit strange and a little bit awkward, but you need to have a conversation and see which is, about talk about the certification to see what is a good match, and make sure that people know that they have a good skill, and the certification is the skill that the interpreter can interpret for that situation. And then you can match the interpreter and make sure that the interpreter is a good match for any job situation. What if the interpreter skill is the receptive skill and the expressive skill needs to match also. So the skill of the interpreter that encourages effective communication, that I understand her and she understands me, and the communication and effective communication happens between the two of us. I want to make sure that that interpreter is skilled enough and that they're talking about the same thing that I am talking about. Maybe if you need to go to the doctor, you're not really allowed to, the doctor offices are not really allowed to ask a family member to interpret. That's like a conflict of interest. So you need to get a skilled interpreter to do that.